Welcome. I'm Graham Stark, and joining me via the magic of the internet, as you can see if you're watching, is our friend Shivam Bhatt, who is here today to talk about the inspirational origins of cards from the Kaladesh set.
Hi, Graham, and
Hi.
Tap Concede. It's an honor to be here, and I'm super excited.
I'm super excited about this as well. Before we get to that, we will do, myself and Shivam, and Paul's, of course, here on the board, we will do a Crack a Pack. And before we even do that, we will remind you, as always, that Tap Concede is brought to you by CardKingdom.com, as is our Magic streams. CardKingdom.com/LRR is the address to go to let them know that we sent you. And we recommend Card Kingdom because it's literally the place that we use, and we work with them because we really value their customer service and their super fast shipping, and we think that they're great. You said you had a Card Kingdom story.
Yeah, so as it happens, every podcast that Magic does now is sponsored by Card Kingdom.
Turns out, yeah.
So, when it comes down to like having to pick which one we use, I think I randomly just chose the Command Cast guys.
Yeah.
And I had ordered a bunch of planes for a bunch of lands for my draft deck because I'm a big basic lands fan, and I wanted to get very special ones for my drafts. So I went and I picked out all the portal ones to get, and I ordered them from Card Kingdom. And obviously they got there before I finished hitting enter. But, and this is the first bad story you will ever hear about Card Kingdom.
Oh no.
All of my lands got here, and I was going through the plains, and they were all in perfect condition. And one said terrain instead of land because they sent me a French one.
Dun dun dun.
Can you believe the indignity? I mean, I'm an OCD collector. If you send me one French portal land, now I need 17 others to have a full set. How is that fair?
So do you have an entirely French set of land now?
Not yet, but I did complain to Card Kingdom on Twitter.
Do you think that Card Kingdom did it deliberately in order to get you to buy a whole set? Are they that devious?
I wouldn't put it past those fiends.
And that's terrific. As a reminder, we also, if you tell them Loading Ready Run sent me button, please, they will give you a little 1-inch button, which we have made for them. Currently, the one is it's the little red rounded square that says 4 minutes and 59 seconds when you're about to time out on Magic Online. Though apparently those numbers are diminishing quickly, so we'll have to think of a new one. And as always, of course, everything that we do, not just Tap Concede, is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. So,
oh wow, it showed up on the screen. That's so cool.
Yeah, the Card Kingdom one I thought did also, but it didn't for some reason.
I don't know why that happened.
Oh, there it is. Hey, Card Kingdom also. Okay. Anyway, let's crack a pack.
Oh man, the Magic D20.
I can't even see it from here. I shouldn't have. 7. There we go.
I feel like a contest winner or something. This is so cool.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got Return to Ravnica.
Aha.
This was given to us by Peter at PAX East 2016. Return to Ravnica has a bunch of cards in Modern Masters, which has been super fun. The couple drafts I've done of it.
Yeah, it was fun to watch you guys this afternoon, or however many afternoons ago it was for the listeners at home.
Well, we're going to try to get this up as quickly as we can, but we will see.
Is Return to Ravnica the last set that is in Modern Masters?
Innistrad, I think.
Innistrad.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
Wait, no. Yes.
Or did
wait.
Innistrad is pre.
Then Return to Ravnica.
Yeah. Because Madcap Skills is in this set.
Because Theros is the one after Ravnica.
Yeah, so there's no cards from M14 forwards.
Yeah, okay. Right. Anyway, first up we have Horncaller's Chant. It's 7 and a green for a sorcery. You get a 4/4 green Rhino token with Trample and Populate.
I love this card.
It's like, I love it. I recall it being cast very rarely in Limited.
Oh yeah, I mean, Return to Ravnica was a super slow set, but even then, you're never going to get to 8 mana and actually do anything fun.
Yeah. But still, 2 4/4 rhinos, at worst, I guess.
Well, it would be your 4/4 rhino and then the gigantic, like, 16/16 squid thing that you put out. Or, no, the big worm that was the Mythic Selesnian.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would have been sweet.
Whatever.
Number 2, cancel. 1 blue, instant counter target spell.
And
The image is broken.
why is nothing working?
This is not typical.
It straight got canceled, dude.
Cancel got canceled.
Fuck.
I am very sorry.
Oh, it's fine.
I thought the Skype part would be the part that would be difficult.
I think
to
it's
get
just
working.
cancel.
It's so weird.
There we go.
There we go.
All right.
All right.
Okay, here we go. Whew. Okay. Number 2, cancel. 1 blue instant counter target spell. It's fine.
It does a job.
Yep. Dramatic Rescue is white and a blue instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand. You gain 2 life. So it's like... It's what?
It's great. It's a lot of fun. I liked playing Azorius a lot in this set, and being able to bounce back your tokens when you're against a Lesnia guy who's got his horn collared Santa or whatever.
Yeah.
Great.
Speaking of Modern Masters, this would be interesting in the would have been an interesting include in the
this would have
blue-white.
fit in perfectly, but I guess
blue-white
they had
bounce
so
deck.
many flicker effects.
It's already an amazing deck if you can get it together. The long legs of the law. Golgari long legs. 5/4. That's it for 5. 3 and then 2 Golgari mana.
Why
I
would
recall-
they waste the hybrid on this.
Well, so I recall in draft that this, while unexciting, did stop an awful lot of plans. Like if your opponent could get to
they're
5
very
and just
big
be like
card.
long legs, and you're sort of sitting there going, "Oh,
Yeah,
well,
I
I
mean-
can never stop that."
It's a 5/4. It's big.
Downsize. Single blue mana. Target creature you don't control gets -4/-0 until end of turn. You can overload for 2 and a blue, which means all the creatures you don't control get -4/-0 until end of turn.
It's fun in Commander.
Man, you want to talk about removal that you begrudgingly were like, "Yep, this gets in." Explosive Impact. 5 and a red for in instant to deal 5 damage to target creature or player.
I mean, it's important to remember this was a really slow set.
That's
Like,
true. You could get to that
Gate
amount.
Crash, which is just every
The
game's over
fastest
on
set
turn
ever.
3.
Well, fastest set in recent memory. Zendikar still exists.
Yeah.
Stonefair Crocodile. 2 and a green for a 3/2. And for 2 and a black, you can give it lifelink until end of turn. That's kind of interesting.
It's fun.
Daggerdrome Imp is 1 and a black for a 1/1 with flying and lifelink. It never really did as much as you wanted it to. Oh, here's a win condition. Doorkeeper.
Oh my god, this stupid card. So let me tell you a story about playing. So Return to Ravnica was one of the earliest sets that I'd come back to Magic to draft. I came back during Innistrad, but Ravnica was the first one that I really felt I was a Magic player. And so I'm sitting there at this draft, and I'm at it's round 3 or something, and I've been losing and just getting my butt crushed. And I sit down against a guy who's got a bunch of dregs because his sealed pool is garbage too. And he puts a Doorkeeper, and then another Doorkeeper, then a third Doorkeeper.
Oh,
and
no.
then a bunch of 0/7 walls. And suddenly every turn I'm getting milled for 600. And I'm just like, what is going on? My dinky creatures can't get through your walls, and your thing
Your
is just eating
walls
my
are
deck.
killing me. Yeah, I guess I should have said, sorry, Doorkeeper it's a 0/4 for 1 and a blue with Defender. And then for 2 and a blue and tap it, target player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, where X is the number of creatures with Defender you control. And so, yeah, if you just got several Doorkeepers, you just sort of sat
Right.
back and you were like, mill you out.
Now, let me tell you a neat thing about this. You played Conspiracy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So in Conspiracy 1, one of the big themes was Defender Matters with my dear friend Venti Vent Sentinel.
Yeah.
And if you do what I do and seed the thing with packs from other sets for Chaos Conspiracy, sometimes you get Ravnica into your Conspiracy.
Oh.
And so when you've got Venti and Doorkeeper sitting next to each other, pick your poison.
Wow, that's good.
That's Fibblethwip, right?
No, that's just a homunculus.
Oh, I see.
Not all homunculuses are Fibblethip, apparently. Rakdos Guildgate. Got to have a couple Guildgates. Pick those up.
Great in Modern Masters.
That's the red-black one, of course. Selesnya Charm. Very good. High pick.
Yeah, this is
single.
probably the one I would start with.
Yeah, it's a green and a white for an instant. Choose one. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains trample until end of turn. Or exile target creature with power 5 or greater. Or the least interesting one, put a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance onto the battlefield. Typically,
But
you would.
because it's an instant, though, like
That's
getting
true.
that 2/2 knight was pretty helpful sometimes.
That's true. Actually, that's a good point. I guess I generally use it for the first two modes, but yeah, all three. It's just all three modes are generally pretty great and limited.
I mean, this card is good.
Zanikev Locust. I don't think I recall seeing this one get used very often.
I
It's
don't know that I've ever seen this card.
Yeah, it's a
I'm sure I have.
3/3 flyer for 5 and a black with scavenge for 2 black. Scavenge was, if it's in your graveyard, you pay the scavenge cost and you exile it, and then you put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to its power on target creature, and you can only do that at sorcery speed. Zanikev Locust, probably front runner for a card you never thought that you forgot was in the set.
Exactly.
Although also, Soul Sworn Spirit,
Soulsworn what now?
Spirit. It's a 3 and a blue for a 2/1. It's unblockable, and when it enters the battlefield, detain target creature and opponent controls. Detain was the Azorius mechanic. Until your next turn, that creature can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated.
I love the detainability. It's one of
It
my
is really cool. And a rare, Growing Ranks. 2
Yes.
and 2 Selesnya, so 4 mana total. At the beginning of your upkeep, populate.
I love the populate deck. I love the populate mechanic, and this pack is super good for populate.
Yeah,
With Selesnya Charm and Growing Ranks, I would pick probably one of those two.
Selesnya is my
And-
jam. That's the problem. The problem is that I actually would like the correct pick is probably to take the Selesnya charm, but I don't know if you wheel Growing Ranks. Maybe you do. You probably don't actually.
In this set, probably not. And that card is so much fun. Like, I mean, it's probably not the one that's going to win you the game, but it's so
Yeah.
much fun.
It's so good. So now, I guess actually I didn't introduce you at the top of the show, so because we just went right into the Crack a Pack. So maybe let's take before we get into our main topic today, which is sort of the real world inspirations of some cards in Kaladesh. How about you tell the listeners at home why we brought you here to do that? Who are you, Shivam?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. And first off, thank you all for inviting me on.
Yeah,
TTC is one of my favorite Magic programs, and it's a thrill to be here.
thank you.
So, as mentioned, my name is Shivam Bhatt, and I'm a writer and cultural commentator about things related to Hinduism, Indian culture, and gaming. And as it so happens, Kaladesh was the perfect nexus of Hinduism and gaming. And so it's just like, oh, it's a thing I can talk about. And having been in the video games industry for like a decade, and I was able to, bring something new to the table. I can speak from the side of the developers, not necessarily in terms of how the cards are built, but how you come across decisions that involve theming and creating and marketing. And about a year or so ago, when Origins came out, maybe 2 years now, I wrote an essay about how I felt that Chandra Nalar was misrepresenting the culture, because when you looked at all the preview art that they had during her origin story, it was all very European looking people with Indian names, and her parents Pia and Kiran and so on. And I was just like, come on, you can't do this. And then I wrote another essay that got a lot of traction during Kaladesh's release about my feelings as an Indian person relating to an Indian set. And then you and I actually met in person at PAX that year when I discussed it with the people and the panel in front of a live stream of a large number of Magic fans who were not expecting cultural discussion on their live stream of preview.
Fair.
Oh, yes. I love that card because Pia and Carolyn, it kind of reminds me of my own relationship because my wife is white and I'm Indian and they're kind of like flipped, but it's such a cool card and
I guess
I love Copters.
Chandra got all the recessive genes.
Yeah, she's Chandra Onalar from
Onalar.
County of Mumbai.
Yeah, County Mumbai.
Watsi put out for St. Patrick's Day a picture of like a gremlin with a 4-leaf clover in its tail, and I was like, of course Chandra's from Ireland. Why wouldn't she be?
Right. So, but today, as as you said yourself, you're not here to be Kaladesh culture police,
I am in fact not here to.
which was a quote I very much
Yeah,
enjoyed.
I'm not here to tell you why you shouldn't like Kaladesh because it's been 6 months since that day, and I've come around to this is my favorite set of all time. In
Sweet.
terms of mechanics, in terms of just how much
It's
fun it
super
is to
fun.
play.
There's the,
Hey, look,
Wow, I
there he
hadn't
is.
seen that. That's amazing.
Yeah,
And so, for those who've been longtime listeners of Tap Tap Concede, when Theros Block was out, we did a series of shows on, because I'm a huge fan of Greek myth. And so we did a series of shows where I was sort of talking to the viewers and to the other co-hosts about the the real myths from our world that inspired certain cards and where certain cards took their inspiration from.
yes.
And
right. Since Arabian Nights, they don't just go like, "This is Aladdin."
yeah,
They-
exactly, exactly.
They try to be a little bit more circumspect about it.
Yeah, it's not quite as like here is the army of Allah, you know.
Yeah.
Like we didn't. However, there were a few cards that I'll discuss today in Kaladesh that definitely feel like they're definitely walking a line really, really close. They're really
Yeah.
interesting to see.
And the thing is, I would never know that, right? Because like I know about all the Greek myths because my mom read me Greek myths when I
Sure,
was a
of course.
kid. But talking to you at PAX, I was like, man, I would love to do that kind of show again for Kaladesh, but obviously we don't know anything about it. So why not get the literal,
expert.
the expert in? So so Shivan's going to walk us through a selection of cards that and talk about the sort of the real world
Right.
inspirations and origins for them. And we're gonna he's got stuff from Kaladesh and Ether Revolt. No idea how long we're gonna talk for. If we talk if we just end up talking a whole bunch, maybe we'll do this as two shows with Kaladesh and Ether Revolt separately. So we'll start with Kaladesh. So where do you want to
Well, I was
start?
thinking of starting with the most iconic Indian card of the entire set,
Oh,
the Thriving Rats. No, just kidding.
I was
Actually,
wondering.
I kind of wanted to talk, start from the top and talk a little bit holistically about the set, and
Yeah.
then drive down into individual cards.
Yeah, please.
So one of the first things about it is the name itself, Kaladesh.
Hmm.
Now, Kaladesh. So Desh, if you know the word Bangladesh, like the country that's in South Asia,
Right.
Desh means nation. It's the equivalent, the Sanskritic equivalent of Stan. Like Pakistan is nation of the pure because it means land of the pure, right? Because Paki
Right.
means the pure people, or like Turkmenistan is land of the Turkmen. Similarly, Bangladesh is land of the Bengalis. So Kaladesh, what does Kaladesh mean? Kala in most North Indian languages means black. So when the name came out, I was a little like, you named it Black Nation. That is interesting.
Hmm.
And a little disturbing, a lot disturbing. But as it happens, I did more research because I speak like 4 or 5 different Indian languages, right? And
Of course.
but most of them you do like on the surface kind of level. So I decided to start going a little deeper because I know that when you're in the industry and you're looking for names for things, you dig down to like the 4th or 5th definition, not
yeah.
just the top one, right?
Yeah, of course.
So I grabbed my old-fashioned, Hindi to English dictionary, and I was like, okay, well, what else could Kala mean? Now, one of the things is when I say tomorrow in my language Gujarati, we say Avtikal, which means forthcoming day, or yesterday would be Gaikal. So Kal has a sense of time. But there's also, if you go down another layer, the notion that it represents like engineering and artistry. Like you could say like Kalastal for like your college is like the College of Engineering or something like that. And so there was this whole idea of like, oh, that must be what they were going for, the engineering school definition of Kala. But that's like 6 layers down. And if
Wow.
you just ask my mom, Kaladesh, she'd be like, Blackland? Really?
But
And
but
so-
but really, they were going for the world of tomorrow,
Right, exactly.
like from like the World's Fair.
Exactly. And it's one of those things where you're like, okay, well, if you don't know, that's just cool word. But if you do know, you're like, that's a little Indiana Jonesy. I'm not sure. But
Yeah, because when I'm trying to come up with that's you bring up a really good point. Because when I'm trying to name something, when I'm trying to come up with like a cool name for something, and I'm looking for inspirations or whatever. Yeah, like you don't pick like the surface level thing. You
right,
drill several definitions down so that it's sort of it's
because you
like
want it to be exotic and cool
exactly
and
it's
have the exact
oblique.
meaning you're looking for.
Yeah,
And the
And
problem is, like, often it's. I'm sorry, what Paul saying to me?
well, I was just gonna say, with these, companies like Wizards of the Coast, which is of course owned by like Hasbro and stuff,
yeah,
and has their team of lawyers and things.
Yes.
They're trying to make sure that it's not there's all these high profile instances of people not realizing that it like a name means something offensive in another language
yeah.
and
Hmm.
not paying attention to it, and so hopefully they've done their research on it.
I mean, I looked through it very closely because I was really concerned about that. And for the most part, yeah, they did. They managed to like dodge a lot of bullets, except for the big one being the name itself. And I get it. And it's just kind of like, well, what are you going to do, right? Like
Yeah.
that's one of those like you have to. If you looked at so Kaladesh, one of the things when they were designing it, they had a whole bunch of Indian consultants that they had bring onto the set to talk about, to look at it for cultural reasons and cultural considerations. But all of the names on there were South Indian people. South Indian languages are as different from North Indian languages as Japanese is from Amharic in Ethiopia.
So
Like
very very different.
like I can understand German. I can't understand Tamil. You know,
Wow.
like it's I mean, there might as well be a harsh line that just crosses straight across India. And underneath that, no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Wow.
And so that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. However, it means that when those people are looking at something like Kaladesh, they might not immediately make the same association that a North Indian Hindi speaker might because they're not coming from the same linguistic background. The word isn't the same,
Right.
right?
Because you mentioned that it's North Indian languages that Kala means black
Yeah.
or darkness, and so if all their consultants are from South India and they're like, hey, so Kaladesh, this means like engineering land, right? And
And they'd be
then
like, sure, I'll
they'll be
take it
like,
on
yeah,
site. It's
that
fine.
sure that tracks.
Sounds
Why
good to
not?
me. Desh is a word I know. It means place. Why not? Good enough.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that you're like, well, there was no way they were going to know that.
Huh.
And because when they did conspiracy, we saw a lot of writings from Kelly Diggs about Kaya, the Black Planeswalker,
Yeah.
and how he went and spoke to a consultant, and they worked really, really closely together to come up with a really detailed and very authentic experience with the character. They did that because they started with Kaladesh doing a much less thorough investigation of culture.
Right.
So, whereas in Kaya's case, they had a person from the ground up help build this character. In Kaladesh, they said, "Here's a bunch of cards. Can you look at them and tell us what you think of them? And
Right.
then maybe you can stop
So
us from doing bad things."
they did Kaladesh and realized that it was a positive experience and that they hadn't gone hard enough.
Right.
Yeah.
So, let's, if you can, Paul, if you could pull up Inspiring Vantage for just a second. Um, Inspiring Vantage, obviously the red white dual land in there. The reason
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about it first is because it's a good landscape kind of the city.
Hmm.
Like when you look at it, it's got your onion domes, it's got the arches, and it looks like it could have been a Mughal city. The Mughals were the royal Muslim rulers of India in the, let's say, 15 to 1700s. They were a big, rich dynasty descended from the Mongols, from like Timur and Genghis Khan and stuff,
Right.
after they converted to Islam in Iran and then invaded India and took over. So it's considered the golden age of India, of just like rich innovation culture, of a lot of just like jewelry and decoration and a lot of things you think about when you think of India, like sitars, domed building. All these things are Mughal Muslim structures that are in India. Like Hindu temples are square and pointed and stuff. All of the architecture in Kaladesh is very swoopy and very rounded and very
Yeah.
arched, and it looks more Persiatic than Indian.
Yeah.
And
That
that's to
that
their
the filigree spirals show up
yes,
everywhere.
exactly. And I
Yeah.
think it's lovely and it's beautiful. And like when you look at the logo of Kaladesh itself, the set logo, that's like the sort of tile work you would see in my bathroom at home. It's super cool. Um, the neat thing they did with this was the onion domes, they turned into ether vents so that they were more like when you go look at a factory worker and they've got the air conditioning vents on top that spin and shoot out the steam.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they did with the onion doves. They're like, we want the soupy look, but we don't want it to be like a dome. We want it to be ethery. So they're like vents.
Huh.
And when you look at all the buildings, they all have these beautiful, like, colonnaded walkways and arches and stuff. And that's the way the buildings are built back home. And it's really, really neat to kind of see that they at least spent a lot of time with the architecture. And it all kind of points upwards. So you're looking at the sky and kind of get this velocity falling backwards of looking at the building. I think this is like one of the cooler set pieces of the set, along with like Inventor's Fair.
I would be fascinated to see what reference material they gave to the artists that were working on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, I asked Jarvis, Jeremy Jarvis, art director of Magic, what they had drawn upon, and he was like, textiles and jewelry. Now, when I first heard that, I was really kind of disappointed because I was hoping for the Kamigawa of India. Let's be real,
Right?
Like, or the Theros of India. I wanted something that I could really dig my like. I've been a fantasy fan my whole life. I've been playing Magic since the beginning. I've waited a long time to see my culture reflected in the game, and in Kaladesh, we got 1950s car culture America dressed up in Mughal era wallpaper. And it's like, okay, well, that's really, really disappointing if you're looking for Theros or Kamigawa. But once you're like, okay, this is what we've got, let's look at it and see what it is, then it's really neat.
Yeah.
Right? And so,
And also, a brief aside about you saying you're a lifelong fan of fantasy. I found this out from a Twitter conversation. Shivam has more Dragonlance
yes.
than nearly
Literally
anybody.
Wizard of the Coast.
What?
Then I've got more than Wizard of the Coast does. I've got maybe one of the top 3 collections in the world of Dragonlance stuff.
When people
Original documents and manuscripts.
when people who made Dragonlance need to confirm Dragonlance trivia, they ask Shivam.
It's pretty great. Like, Margaret Weiss she'll be at Gen Con and she'll be tweeting me saying, hey, somebody asked this question about, the Tales of the Lance book or something. Can you answer it? I have no idea. And I'm like, yes, Margaret, give me a moment, please.
Anyway, totally unrelated to Magic. I just thought that was awesome.
So Dragonlance died, and that's why I came back to Magic, because once Dragonlance was over, I needed something to put my die-hard insane amount of fandom into. And I found Magic again, and now I have Dipala. And,
you got the giant Dipala behind you. That's sweet.
Yeah, I won this at PAX. It's pretty neat. But so let's talk a little bit about the individual cards.
Yeah, please.
First off, can you pull up Girapur Gearcrafter from Origins? Because
this was the first time we sort of saw the first time we saw or heard of Kaladesh at all
exactly
was in Magic Origins, and this was one of the first.
I bring up this card because this is the first card that, in the first time in my life in Magic, I was like, oh my god, I could cosplay this dude. Like, it was a huge moment for me that I see Girish Girapuri over here, like, building a Thopter, and I'm like, A, he's doing my favorite thing in the world. He comes into play with the Thopter. B, it's a character who is crafting things that has my hairstyle, and if I shaved, could look like my brother. And that was a huge moment for me. That was really kind of like, that's when the idea of representation mattering really just kind of hammered home. I was like, I've never had a character that, like, even in Japanese video games, there's like Dalsim, and Dalsim's not somebody you really want to be, and like in American pop culture, I have Apu, or the dude holding up Kalima's heart in, or Gonti's heart in Indie Jones, and just all this other terrible stuff. And I was like, oh my god, maybe this will be the one. Like, Girapur, incidentally, is a neat pun, because gear is just a fancy way they wrote gear. It's not actually means a word, but Pur means city, so it's City of Gears. And I was like, that's neat.
That's
Girapur.
so cool.
That's cute. But so if we go to Kaladesh itself, the card Inventor's Apprentice is the most iconically Indian card you're going to see in this set, and it's fantastic. Our dear darling Nerdape, I love this card.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a little bit about this card here.
So I guess I realize I should say, for a reminder to anyone listening and not watching, that the Inventor's Apprentice, it's the 1/2 for 1 human artificer, and when it gets +1/+1 as long as you control an artifact. So yeah, it's the
and I'll make sure to actually visually describe the card so that the people like me who listen to you in the car can actually know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
because it's kind of boring to talk about art if you have no idea.
Fair.
So, Inventor's Apprentice is the lady who is looking to the right of the card. She's holding up this object as if in offering. So when you look at this card, first off, a few things you see is one thing you see is her textiles. The artist here, his partner is actually an Indian woman, and he used a lot of her costuming to draw upon to make this artwork.
Oh, cool.
So you look at the fringe of her clothes, and that is a very traditional sari. It's like got a thick gold brocade on it and a lot of kind of filigree work that's very representative of like sari you'd see in North India, kind of like wedding looking clothing. She's got it draped in an odd way, but that's fine because it's Kaladesh, whatever fantasy. But the thing I want to draw your attention to is the way that she's holding her hands out with this invention as if it's above her head, offering it to something. Now, in the story of the card, obviously, it's like the inventor is offering it to her, maybe her teacher, right? Like, hey, look at this thing I built. But in Hindu culture, when you go to a Hindu temple and you'll go there, you'll see that the statues of deities are there. And they're like maybe, 6, 8 foot tall things that are going to be elevated up on a stage. And you're going to be on the ground and you're going to be looking kind of upwards because that's the way religion makes you do.
Right.
And when you've got, when you're in the ceremony, we do this thing called an arti, which is where you've got a plate which has little lamps on it, and you wave it around in a circle as if you're while you're singing songs because you're offering this light and the fruits and whatever you're offering, and this is a way of giving it symbolically to the statue. The way that she's holding this object is that exact pose of you'd be like doing your counterclockwise circle, like, here, please take this thing from me and bless it and give it back to me. And when I saw this, I was like, because there's a picture of me holding my son in a temple like a few weeks after he was born in that exact same pose.
Wow.
And I was like, that is somebody who knows what they're doing. That was really, really cool.
That's amazing. Because again, like to like I said, I don't know any of this, right? And to my eyes, she was just holding a thing to look at it, right? But as you describe it, yeah, it's because I actually I saw in one of your articles that had some associated images, and yeah, it's that exact pose.
Right, and that's the sort of thing that I was looking for because I thought it was super neat to see that kind of just idea being represented in a way that's not offensive, it's not appropriative, it's properly situated within the cultural milieu of this set, and yet if you know the language that it's speaking, it gives you this extra layer of awesome.
Yeah,
right? Like
that's so cool.
Like everybody's like, "Oh man, Kaladesh is appropriate." I'm like, no. It's not appropriation. This is appreciation. This is, hey guys, we get it. We see what you're doing. It's cool for us, but for you, it has an extra happy meaning to it. And I thought that was just really neat.
Yeah, I found there's actually a high res version of that art.
Oh
too,
wow,
which is nice.
Yeah,
wow, the detail on the costuming is amazing on the high res.
Right, and you look at it and you're like, it's filigree in the style of Kaladesh, kind of swoopy, but it's also something that I could see my mother wearing, and that is just so uniquely awesome. And her hairstyle is very contemporary Indian. It's cool. She actually looks Indian, like her face is totally Desi, and I thought that was awesome. The other card, let's see, building off of this, if you pull up the card Spontaneous Artist, which is human rogue for 3 and a red. It's a 3/3 that gives you an energy and whatever. It's like a good card for limited. But the neat thing is this dude is jumping over this filigreed fence. Oh, and viewers at home will see that my eyes are shifting a bit. I have 2 monitors. On the second monitor is all the cards.
Oh, that's fine. I can also don't worry about it.
But yeah, when you look at that filigreed fence, that is so just iconic for Mughal style Indian architecture because they loved craftsmanship. There's this notion of you want everything to be artistic, filigreed, because in Islamic architecture, you're not allowed to show figures. You're not allowed to show bodies of humans. You're, warned against showing things like animals or birds because you don't want to represent life in a non-living thing, because it's almost like you're taking the gift of God away. And that's why, you're not supposed to, show the prophet for various reasons. And so what they did was a lot of their art ended up being geometric, ended up being very stylized, artistic, lots of filigree. So when you look at this, you see a whole ton of Islamic influence in this one card here. So
the idea being that because God created life and people and animals, you should not be trying to
Right.
create animals.
And you're not God. You're trying to represent something you can't because you're not
Right.
the creator. But geometric forms, artistic forms, that's totally cool. So like you look at this fence here, and it's just kind of this repeating wavy pattern that is super delicate and super complicated, but it represents the artistry that they're allowed to do.
Wow.
And similarly, when you look at the graffiti behind this person,
Which presumably they just made a sick tag and
right,
taken off.
exactly. They just made a sick tag, but that sick tag, look at it. It's an onion dome pointing upwards with this filigreed work underneath it. It's that same iconic, or rather aniconic, Islamic style art you would see. And
Hey,
I thought like it was cool.
Yeah, I was saying, you would think that somebody who's like rebelling against the system would be like doing squares or something, you know, and,
Like
like
someone's
ev-
face.
yeah, even the I like that even the graffiti artists are doing all the filigree and stuff.
Exactly. Like, yeah, you know, a couple of doodles extra here, it'll be fine.
What would the contemporary take on Kilroy Was Here be? Just a little
Exactly. I
face
mean,
peering over.
if you look at things like the architecture inside of mosques, you will see, for instance, a lot of this kind of geometric, or like Moroccan tile work. You'll see this as well. And it was a really neat way for them to kind of represent the Mughal style architecture and art without being explicit about it. And it also, again, sticks with the kind of filigree look motif of Kaladesh. Now, one of the other cards I wanted to talk about. So, bring up. Let's talk about the other side of this person. Actually, no. Do you remember what was a card that has a Johnny jumping in? It's a white card that
Impeccable timing?
impeccable timing. Bring that one up. That's
All right.
because there's a whole great story with this card.
All right. I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah, I also ended up writing an article about this one. So impeccable timing is a great, perfect indicator of putting in a very, very, very Hindu iconic art into the set without having any idea of what it means.
Yeah, I would never have guessed that this, because I don't know what you're about to say. Right. I would never have guessed that impeccable timing of all cards would have any bearing.
Lightning bolt you've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a Johnny. He's jumping in. That's all there is on the card. So what?
So, if you'll indulge me for just a few seconds, let me tell you a very famous Hindu fable.
Please.
So last week was the start of spring.
Yeah.
And spring is the season of Holi, which is the festival of colors in India, where you throw lights and colored powders at people and sing or dance and everything. It's because we're representing a bonfire that you set the demon Holika, this woman, and you lit her on fire, and that's what this spring festival is about. And you're like, how is that good? Lighting people on fire is not a good idea.
No, that sounds bad.
Let me tell you a story about. Okay, this is going to take a few seconds to set up, so please indulge me. In Hinduism, there's a couple of different strains. There's Shaivism, where they worship Shiva, and Vaishnavism, where they worship Vishnu. Vishnu is this very standard, blue-skinned god, 4 arms. Everybody knows what he looks like. And Vishnu's worship involves these things called avatars. You might be familiar with the concept of avatars because you play video games. Avatars are symbolic representations of you in a thing. In Hindu culture, it's God descending on earth, taking a form, and that form is his avatar. And so Vishnu is known for having 10 avatars, the fourth of which was a man lion who carried a giant axe and had claws named Narsimha. Narsimha, if you look at him, if you pull up Oath of Ajani right now, it's literally that. Oath of Ajani is literally, if I put it into my temple, my parents would not blink an eye.
They would just assume it was Narsimha.
Yeah, it's basically like, look at, it's gonna, yes, there it is. So this was a card that made me wince a little bit because it is literally a Hindu icon. It's the man lion with his
in that exact pose,
shoulder, his hand upraised to offer a blessing or benediction. Yes, it's iconically identical to all the other oath cards. It's like, I'm the Planeswalker, I've got my hand up. But in an Indian set, a half man, half human who has his hand up and has his mystic axe on his back is literally a divine picture.
Wow.
This is literally a god picture and of an actual god. And when I told Kelly Diggs that, he was just like, oh no, we didn't show this to our consultants. Oh no. And I was
because why would they? Because it's just a Johnny who is an existing planeswalker doing the same pose as the other planeswalkers on their oath cards, but it just happens that because it's a half man, half lion with his hand up and the axe, It's like, wait a minute, we accidentally a god.
Whoops. And if this was in like, Innistrad, nobody would blink an eye. Whatever, it's just a dude.
Yeah.
In Kaladesh, suddenly it's like, oh, context. Oh no.
Do you think that's a fluke? Like in terms
I
of
think it's absolutely unintentional, completely fluky.
but like I wonder whether Johnny's original design was influenced by.
Oh no, not even.
that.
I guarantee.
Not
they
at
have
all?
No.
So I wonder if they were like, hey, there's there's all these depictions of half man, half lion. We have a half man, half lion. Why don't we just put him in there?
Yeah, I think they're way too sensitive to do anything remotely like that. I think that if they had any idea, this would have been Oath of Tomio or something instead. But so going back to impeccable timing,
Right.
the card is called impeccable timing. It means he's showing up at the exact right time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in this story, so there's a demon king who has taken over the universe. His name is Hiranyakashipu. It doesn't matter. The point is, he's got a young son who is a deeply pious, devout believer in Vishnu. And this guy's the demon king, and he's like, why are you worshiping a god? I destroyed them all. They're pathetic. Who cares? And this kid's like, I like God. I'm great. He's great. Everything's great. And so Hiranyakashipu is like, okay, this is bad. You're bad. I need to kill you. And this kid's got he's praying, so he's got the armor of God and invincibility and everything. And so the various different ways the demon king tries to kill this boy, because the demon has prayed a long time ago and gotten a boon from another god that says, I can't be killed at day or night. I can't be killed on the ground or in the sky. I can't be killed inside or outside. I can't be killed by man or beast. Like all the conditional type of when you're wishing from a genie to get a wish
Right.
type of thing.
I
Because
mean,
love
day-
these convoluted things.
It's
Day or night, ground or air, and inside or outside covers an awful lot.
Right, and man or beast. So
Yeah.
just to make sure that okay, nothing's gonna get me, right? And so he's taking his son and he's trying to destroy him in different ways to punish this kid. His sister takes him and she's got the boon of immunity to fire. So she sits down in a fire and holds this kid to immolate him. But he prays, he gets the immunity of fire, she loses it and gets torched. Thus the Spring Festival, because we're destroying the demon who's trying to kill an innocent believer. But so the god gets pissed. So the demon gets pissed off, and he's like, "If your god is so strong, then he'll show up right now." And he just takes his mace and smashes this big pillar standing next to him. Impeccably timed. Turns out that while he's having this discussion, the sun is just about to set, but hasn't quite yet crossed the dusk threshold. And inside of this pillar, which is one of the gates that's holding up his door, so it's not inside or outside. And then it's neither ground nor sky because it's the pillar holding up the two. Out comes this gigantic man lion. Narsing means literally man lion. Nar, man, sing, lion. So Narsima comes out and has giant claws, white hair, big teeth, and he roars. And Hiranyakashipu is sitting there in his head, kind of going down the list, going, "Oh crap, this is not good."
It's neither man nor beast, but it didn't say anything about man beast.
yeah. It's the original rules lawyer. There.
Yeah.
As it turns out, he's impeccably timed. And you look, and this picture of a Johnny literally jumping out of what could very well be a shattered wall of some kind. And there's a dude with a mustache who's just getting his ass beat. And it's like, oh.
Because
right?
there's absolutely no reason for, the spell is...
By the way, we have a high-res picture of that again.
Oh, nice. Because the spell is 1 and a white, deals 3 damage to attacking or blocking creature. That could be anything. It didn't have to be impeccable timing. It didn't have to be a Johnny in the art.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah, that seems like a really conscious decision.
And when you look at this card, it's just kind of a lot of people just looked at it and kind of just dismissed it as limited jank, whatever. Or gee, that's a weird card to just have a Johnny arbitrarily on it.
Yeah.
I looked at it and I was like, oh crap! It's amazing. It's so perfectly exactly Narsima, the story in one card of just this absolutely iconic Hindu story. And it's just perfect.
That's
and
so
I was
amazing.
Like, this is just baller.
That's terrific.
Yeah, and is this a super, super cool card that had a really deep meaning and a whole ton of stuff behind it. the reason I bring this up is because it shows how far Magic has come.
Hmm.
Because in Alpha there was a card called Juggernaut, right? Like we all remember Juggernaut. He's a 4 mana cast cost 5/3, must attack if able, and can't be blocked by walls.
Right.
Uh,
We'll
can you
bring that
pull
up.
up
Do you have a
the
specific printing you'd like us to bring
Alpha
up for that one?
Juggernaut? Or yes, there we
Original
go.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason this card matters, and the reason the art in this really really irks me. So, do you know what the Juggernaut is aside from an X-Men villain?
Honestly, no. I mean, I only know of it from X-Men, which is that nothing can stop him, and the magic card, which is always must attack. So the
Right,
idea
and
that
just the English idea of like an unstoppable thing.
it starts going and then it just can't be stopped, basically.
Right. So let me give you another.
Or as again like in that same definition, like just as a
super big thing.
just like a literary device, right?
Right.
Just like it was a complete juggernaut of a
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a little bit about this card, and actually give you a little bit of history of Magic while we're at it.
Yeah.
So Richard Garfield, when he was growing up, he spent a lot of his early life in Nepal. I don't know if you know this or not,
I did not know that.
but that's also why we have the Shivan dragon and like the land of Shiv being fire related.
Huh.
Because it's based on the Hindu god Shiv, which is why I never played Red for a good 15 years because they misspelled my name on Shivan Dragon. But but the point is though, the Juggernaut is a very famous Hindu. So let me tell you the story. So England once ruled India, right?
Yeah.
And they ruled them for 200 years, just like they ruled your country,
Yep.
and my country now, America. And so in the olden days, the British colonialists would go into the jungles and see the natives doing their rituals, and they would be like totally horrified because they have no idea what's going on. So in the far east of India, there's a state called Orissa, and in Orissa, there's a place called Puri. Puri is one of the famous Vishnu temples and just holy sacred sites in India, and it's dedicated to a god named Jagannath. Now, Jagannath is, when you look at him, it's this weird kind of pre-Hindu god. It's like a little stump with big giant eyes drawn on it. It's painted black. And then there's his little sister Subhadra, and then his brother Balabhadra. And they're like pre-Hindu that became Hindu over time. And they're just like these like wooden stumps of gods with giant eyes. They're really kind of weird looking. It's super amazing.
So they
But
were
the
almost
trick-
they were almost I mean, I don't want to say pagan, but they were
Yes,
like they
exactly.
they
They're
got
like
and they got absorbed. Yeah, they were tribal gods that got absorbed into Hinduism.
Exactly. And
Okay.
like they became a huge part of Hindu culture and like eventually associated with Krishna and stuff. But originally and still in Puri, they're very pagan pre-Hindu deities and they're worshipped that way. And the thing is, they have this thing that's very famous called the Rath Yatra. Rath means chariot, Yatra means trip. So what that is the chariot trip that these gods go on in the fall to go on this holy pilgrimage thing. They take the giant idols out of the temple, put it onto these huge carts that are then dragged by devotees from one side of the town to the other on this pilgrimage while they're singing and chanting and stuff. And because all the devotees during this time want to go and get close to the gods, they'll go and try to rush the chariot and try to get in there. And sometimes they'll get, caught under the wheels or trampled or, I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of people trying to get close to these icons that are being dragged in these chariots. Of course, dangerous things are going to happen. So what happened is the British colonial general who was there at the temple during this festival was sitting there just kind of like, what are these weird pagans doing with their crazy voodoo nonsense?
This all
And-
seems dangerous. We should put a stop to it.
Yes. And he wrote a letter back and he's like, these Indian brown people have this thing called the Juggernaut, a 9-headed chariot demon that they bring from the depths of Satan and sacrifice humans to. And he wrote back to
That sounds
England.
yeah, that sounds about right for
That's exactly what they did, of course.
Yeah.
And it became this giant myth of the Juggernaut, this unstoppable man beast on wheels that drives over people.
so it was
Look at
like
this picture here from Alpha.
so it was
right?
like you there. What's that thing called? Like what the you mean the deed that's
Yeah,
the little thing. Well, the little thing is called the juggernaut. That's the idol. But the whole thing. Nope, I'm done. You've said all I need to know. That's
goodbye,
juggernaut.
peace. It's like,
I
wait,
mean,
what? No. It's like,
that's
oh, you're
how-
ignorant, you don't understand.
That's
if
how
you look
Canada got named.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the Canadian heritage minutes that would air on television is explorers and First Nations people and being like, what's the name of that place? or like what's the name of this place, and one of the First Nations guys points to the village and says Kanata, which is the word for village, and the guy's like, oh, it's called Canada. All right
Never
then,
be.
that's what we'll call it. And then someone else was like, I'm pretty sure. This is in the like a part of our heritage. This is how like down on ourselves Canadians are. This is the like Heritage Minute. There's a guy leaning in being like, I'm pretty sure he just means village, and the other person's like, no, it definitely just
It's
means
fine.
the country. Yeah,
I love that though. That's like the equivalent of the the old like Lemmings thing where it's like basically they just like watched a few and they're like, oh, okay, I know exactly how this whole thing goes.
yeah. A couple lemmings fell off, and it's like, ah, yes, lemmings jump to their death. I know because I saw it happen once.
So yeah, and
So
like,
you're saying that this is a representation of that not entirely accurate.
Right. So when you look at the original Alpha Juggernaut picture for those at home,
Yeah.
you see a giant toothed like demon thing on top of a cart, and there's a poor person screaming as they're getting overrun by this thing. It is literally like an artistic magic, like an iconic magic card depicting a horrifically racist reinterpretation of a very sacred part of my culture.
Wow.
It's
and
Juggernaut.
every instance of Juggernaut since, or even Juggernaut type cards,
Yeah.
are always now tanks. Like they're
Yeah.
just straight up tanks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, because Kelly Diggs was doing research again on trying to think of things to put in Kaladesh, and he very specifically avoided juggernauts because he Googled it and it was like, oh no, this is bad. No, we can't do this.
How many problems could be avoided if, hey, I Googled it?
As it turns out, maybe
A surprising
maybe
amount.
the best
Yeah.
icon you want to be pulling from.
If you just have to care just a little.
Yeah.
I absolutely would never have known that.
Right, and it's like it's one of my favorite Magic stories because I love Juggernaut. I think it was one of my favorite cards back in the day.
Yeah.
And then I grew up and I actually looked it up and I was like, oh crap.
Yeah. And I mean the card type now is like whatever, and
Yeah.
it's a cool ability. It's big
Sure,
artifact
I mean, it's
creatures have to
fine.
attack every turn. But yeah, I guess this particular art, the one from
This
Alpha
one
is
I mean, it's exactly what I described.
Yeah.
It's just like if you were a colonial British man, this is what your wife reading at home in merry old Londonderry is looking at that saying, oh, this must be exactly what he is talking about. Ha ha ha, those poor Indian people.
man,
Let's call
India
them.
is so weird. Wow.
Oh man. Also, sorry, the artist also who made that also responsible for the best card ever, Animate Wall. I love the pictures on that. Just a wall with little arms and a face.
He's just like, "Brr, new wall."
The woman's like, no. Why? Anyway,
Anyways, so but that does lead me to so Kaladesh did a lot of things right. Like for instance,
Yeah.
if you look at who is the Servo Lord, Master Tinkerer.
oh yeah.
So Master Tinkerer is an amazing looking card because it's like one of the most artistically perfectly designed dudes. Like he's got Master Tinkerer is the Servo
Trinketeer?
Topper-
Right, Trinketeer, yeah.
Trinketeer. I'm sorry, not Tinkerer.
That's fine.
Trinketeer. He's the 2 and a white for 3/2 that gives your servos and thopters +1/+1 and lets you make more servos. I love him in my Brea deck. He's great. But he's also a fantastic picture because you look at him, his beard is the exact proper length that you would expect from an old Indian man with the right amount of voluminous kind of look. But the important thing is the top knot on his head. If you look at the way that thing is tied up there, I probably should be a little quieter. My son is trying to go to bed in the next room, so I will drop down my volume a little bit.
Fair enough.
But yeah, if you look at the Master Tinker, his hair is tied up in the way that a Rishi's knot would be. The Rishi being like the ancient Hindu sages who sat on the side of the road and were like considered masters. They put their hair in a little top knot. They have the long beard. So if you look at him, put him in a saffron robe, he could easily be a priest or a wandering mendicant. And it's really, really neat to see kind of how they took this master artistic kind of idea and took the iconic look of what a sage master would look like and put them together in a way that gives you something that's representative without being appropriative. And I love that. I thought it was really cool. Because the flip side of that is actually Angel of Invention, which is
Yes.
the single worst card in the entire set.
I remember you mentioning something about this, and
Oh yeah,
I'm glad you brought it up.
yeah. I mean, I wanted to lead into it. I don't want to just start and say, "Look at these guys."
Yeah.
But Angel of Invention, the mythic rare 2/1 for 5 that can flying vigilance and lifelink and fabricate 2, which is my favorite mechanic of all time. I love fabricate.
Yeah.
And other creatures you get, yeah, +1/+1. This card was my promo when I walked into the Kaladesh pre-release, and I had to laugh because it's like seriously the most offensive card in the whole set.
Really?
First off, so let's go over this. So for those at home, it's the Kaladeshi style angel, which has got the silver kind of mask over its red face, wings, 4 arms with swords coming out, and then kind of the robes flowing underneath. Now,
So
when I showed you,
as someone with complete ignorance, it looks rad.
right, and the card itself is amazing.
Yeah,
I
the
love it.
card's terrific. The art looks amazing, but
Let me tell you why.
yeah,
So, if you remember when I showed you Inspiring Vantage, we saw all the domes and stuff.
right.
You'll notice there were no green domes or green domes anywhere in the set of Kaladesh Ether Revolt. Like the color green even is very rare to see outside of the elves, because the green dome is the dome that is over the tomb of Muhammad. It is the sacred color of Islam. It's like you would never put a green dome anywhere because it has a very specific meaning to it. Similarly, the color saffron is so iconically Hindu that even just a plain unadorned saffron flag is enough to tell you that there's a Hindu there. Like like all of the high priests of like the master cricketer or whatever would be wearing saffron in India. Saffron is a sacred color. It's the color of like people who've renounced life and gone on to the next stage of being, teachers and so forth. It's like hyper sacred.
Right.
And so the Angle of Innovation, when I saw it, it was the first card in there that had kind of the saffron pinkish highlights, and I was like, hmm. And then, because I remember I was sitting in PAX. Oh, there it is, beautiful. I was sitting in PAX with Trick Jared, the community manager and stuff, and he was like, "Oh, did you see the angel?" And I'm like, "Angel? Why is there an angel in an Indian set?" And then I looked at it and I was like, "Guys, let me count the ways that you just screwed me." Um, so if we go from the top, first off, there's this beautiful filigreed helmet that covers the eyes of this character, right? And it's got kind of that like arch over the top that indicates kind of a sun look, like the rising sun,
Right.
almost. So there's the most important god of South India is a god called Venkateshwar. He's a patron saint of like deep south. It's kind of Vishnu iconically represented. One of the things about Venkatesh is that he's got a big silver helmet that covers his eyes exactly like this. And being Vishnu, he is the sun oriented. So you've got the Surya coming out of the head of this angel thing. Then you've got the 4 arms. You'll notice one of the things about Kaladesh is that it has Vidalkin, right? And
Right.
Vidalkin in earlier sets were known for being multi-armed creatures.
Yeah.
They didn't do that because having a blue-skinned 4-armed thing would be a little on the nose when it comes to,
I was wondering about
Hindu-
that. Yeah, because the Vidalkin in like Mirrodin or I'm trying to think of where else we've seen them. But yeah, they always had
Right.
4 arms. But you're right. The Vidalkin in this set, and they
They
are
have multiple
Vidalkin.
hands,
They have
multiple fingers rather.
they have like extra fingers, which is kind of creepy, but that's
As
fine.
it is, though, in India, you see a lot of people with extra fingers in my family, especially. It's just something, I don't know. I have no idea why it is.
Huh.
It just like it's not common, but it's not uncommon. It's just kind of creepy, but whatever. But the point is,
Yeah,
you've
but
got
they
an angel
avoided the
here
arms because, as you say, blue
because
4 arms.
a
Yeah,
blue-skinned 4-armed creature is very, very much a god. That's not like you can't even hide that.
right.
So for the listeners at home, let me explain why there's blue skin and 4 arms. Like the idea isn't that our gods are weird, like animalistic space demons. It's because these things represent other. Like his skin is blue because humans don't have blue skin. This is something beyond our capability. He has multiple heads because he's looking in different parts of space and time. We don't have that ability because we can only look in the time that we're in. Multiple arms because God is omnipotent and can omnipresent and do all those things. And so to iconically represent that, you get things that have multiple heads and arms and skin colors and things. And it
Things that are
represents-
categorically not human.
Right, because
Yeah.
it's supposed to be like, look, this is beyond where you are. And so it just, when you understand that, you're like, okay, I get it. But when you go back to the angle of innovation, of invention, you've got red skin. Red skin is the goddess Durga's color. She's like the mother goddess rides a tiger. It's right kind of from the blood and stuff of the wars that she represents. And then you've got four hands. And I was just like, guys, four hands on a red skin thing with facial covering like that. Okay, fine. Durga's got multiple arms and weapons because she's the war goddess. And skin is red. And then the saffron and reddish color on the belt. And I was like, okay, well, that's definitely divine. And it's just the whole thing was like, so when I was talking to Jeremy Jarvis and explaining to him my issues with the set, he said, look, we tried very hard to avoid anything that could offend anybody. We didn't want anybody to have hurt feelings from this. We didn't want anybody to come away thinking we were like making fun of their religion or their culture or something like that. They wanted to use, like I said, the wallpaper of the setting to paste over this pre-existing set. And it could have been anything. Like if you took Kaladesh and took all the Indian stuff off, it would still be the exact same set, right?
Right.
Like if you took Theros and took all the Greek out, you wouldn't have Theros. If you took Kamigawa and the Japanese out, you wouldn't have Kamigawa. But Kaladesh could have been a Wild West setting. It could have been any number of settings, and it would still been fine, right?
Right.
But an angel. Now, what religion does an angel come from?
I'm going to take Christianity for 300, Alex.
Mm-hmm. And Christianity was a religion of who? The British invaders who colonized India?
So there's no angels in any Indian religion.
No.
Right. And so this
well,
is...
I mean, in Islam there is a little bit, but they're all men.
Right. And so this is an angel that is represented visually
out
by
like every Hindu deity.
Cobbled together from different
it's
deities.
like, hey, let's take all the stuff we weren't going to offend you with in the entire set, wrap it into one card, and stick it on an angel.
At least it's all on the one card. At least it's sequestered to this one card.
I was like, and of course this is going to be the foil that I get in my preview, right?
Obviously.
And everything.
I mean, you ran it, right?
Yeah, of course, because I love Boros and I mean, this card is amazing. Why wouldn't I? But it just I had to laugh so hard.
Yeah.
This card basically was the ultimate fail for me. Like, of just, I mean, like, you've got that weird tiger-headed dragon. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. You have dwarves and elves and Vidalcan. I'm like, okay, you have to do magic. It has to be magic, fine. But an angel is that, like, avatars exist in magic, right? And there's like a million other things it could have been. There's any number of like giant white creatures you could have that weren't angels in this, but nope, they went with angels. And
I mean, I guess.
Well, like I think there's
don't they always have?
Well, there's a school there's a certain thing. I remember Mark Rosewater talking about it, that they always have to have, like, I remember they were talking about doing in Innistrad where dragons have no business being.
Right,
yeah,
they're like, we had to make an Innistrad type dragon, or else everyone would be mad at us.
Moonveil dragon.
It's like a dragon that looks like a piece of architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I'd be curious, like you know, I mean, obviously there are other options for.
Well, you could have gone with Archcons. You could have gone with avatars. You could have gone with...
I mean, like an Archon. Yeah, something like that.
I mean, it looks very much like an avatar from the way you describe it.
Right. But, I mean, if they had gone with Avatar, that would have been even more, like, on the nose, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
I don't know that there's necessarily a good solution, but I know that Angel is probably not the one.
Fair.
And if they were going to do an Angel, they should not one that is so
just
indicative
everything.
of everything else.
It was just, I laughed, because what can you do? You look at that and you're just like, this is just ridiculous. Like the Angel from Ether Revolt, I think was very similar. Exquisite Archangel, she kind of had that same like look to her, and I was like, oh guys, you doubled down.
Wasn't there also from Kaladesh, there was the 4/4 for 6 that when it entered the battlefield you blinked a creature.
This guy?
Wisp-Weaver Angel. Yeah, same. She looks
almost exactly the same.
Looks
actually,
almost identical to the Angel of Invention.
Like,
yeah,
all the critiques still apply.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's just like, guys, you double. Okay, you want to know the thing that makes me the saltiest?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so in like the last 30 Magic sets, we've always had a one-drop white creature named Pillarfield Ox or something like that, right? Good old
Right.
Battle Kettle, an 04 who just sits there, an 04 who just
Paul
sits
has these
there
on standby.
and like just goes moo and is like your white wall.
Yeah.
And the one set that it would have been so perfect to have good old Battle Cattle in would have been Kaladesh. And instead, our 04 drop is a tasseled dromedary. They put a camel. And I was like, that's not fair. Like,
Yeah, I
this
was
would have
I was
been
wondering
so
about
perfect.
that.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, I'm not saying there aren't camels, and obviously in a Mughal set, it makes sense because in North India, in like Rajasthan, so even now you'll get traders coming from Afghanistan with like spices and stuff like hing and other like Indian spices, and they'll be on camel caravans going from Afghanistan through Pakistan through Rajasthan's desert to come to like the trade places in Burda and places like that to actually do the way they did like 1200 years ago, and it's super neat.
wow.
And I thought it was cool to have a camel, but I was just like, come on, man, this is the one place where having a cow would have worked. It would have been perfect. You could have done it. It would have been great. I don't know why there's sky whales in this set. That doesn't make any sense. There's no whales in India, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
Fair enough.
But the other thing that makes me salty, and so Wiley Bandar, or my good old friend the Bandar, right?
Yeah.
And I really appreciate, by the way, you guys taking the chance and trying to say Bandar and instead of Bandar the way
I don't quite roll my R's like that, but yeah, I
So,
say
like,
I say bunder whenever possible.
yeah, and that's close enough. It's good.
Yeah.
Like for instance, for me it would be Vandar or Vandro because I speak Gujarati instead of Hindi. But
Yeah.
like, so when they were doing the Kaladesh Pro Tour, BDM was saying Billy Bunder instead of Wiley Bandar, and that made me laugh because Billy in Hindi means cat, Bandar in Hindi means monkey. So Billy Bandar is the cat monkey. And I was
That's
like,
actually
"You got
amazing.
it in one.
Yeah.
It's perfect."
Yeah, we were really pushing for cat monkey tribal, but it didn't happen.
Yeah. So
Why
far
the
there's
hell
only
would it have
two.
been a cat monkey? Why couldn't it have just been a monkey? We have Raghavan. Raghavan's a monkey.
Yeah.
Why is he a cat monkey? Why does he have to be a cat monkey at all? He doesn't. He does it to piss me off. That's why they do. It's just
Do we
like
have? Is there
He is wily, you know.
Yeah. Is there like a upswing at the end of the of the cards from Kaladesh? Can we? Are there others that they did well on?
Let's end on a much higher note. So the thing is though, like I really like the stories that they did with this set. I thought they did an amazing job with them. And so actually, let's see here if I can find one right now. One thing that was really neat was the card Wild Wanderer. They actually got an Indian to do his first card in the set. What's his name? Siddharth Chaturvedi. Siddharth Chaturvedi is an artist that got to his debut in the set with this card, which is super neat. And
Yeah.
getting to draw in the Indian set. And it's a cool looking card. It actually has facial features to look fancy and stuff. I mean, the thing is, like, the green cards just were gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like, the tigers and stuff were so well done. Somebody had asked about the elephants in the set. So I guess that's a good place to,
Oh yeah.
I guess we could wrap up the Kaladesh stuff. If you get Fairgrounds Trumpeter up.
The louder it trumpeted, the more the crowd roared, and the more the crowd roared, the louder it trumpeted, or however it goes. Yes.
So
Cheered,
the thing about
sure.
the elephants in this set that were so cool was they did it right. They got the ears to look properly Indian. Indian elephants have smaller ears than African elephants do, which have the big giant ears.
Yeah.
But the other thing they did in this that was really cool is if you count the number of tusks he has, you'll see that there's like 3 or so on each side. That's because in Indian mythology, the king of the gods, Indra, he rides on an elephant that has multiple tusks. And it was super neat to see that kind of iconic throwback on an elephant that looked properly Indian. And I was like, you guys, that's really cool. That's like something that's like, a deep dive, a deep cut, if you will.
It also, that's also something that like it serves their purposes for Magic of making it, it's not just an elephant. It's different. Look how many tusks it has. And then for you, you're like, hey,
It's got story reference.
I know what that is.
Oh, I've got the perfect card to wrap Kaladesh up with.
Okay.
My boy, Gumball. Gumball, the console of allocations. who is
Oh,
the
yeah.
most Indian iconic card you're ever going to see here. First off, this guy, the one white black 2/3, who is awesome. You know, when an opponent casts a non-creature, they lose 2 and you gain 2. He is
Sorry,
straight
which
out
one's-
of Central Bollywood
It's
testing. Are we having
Kumbul.
Kambal?
Sorry, KAM. So it's
Cambal.
yeah, but how would you say it?
Humble.
Kumbul.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like rhymes with humble, which is what
Right.
he's not.
KAMBUL?
KAMBUL.
BAL.
BAL. I'm sorry. It's pronounced BUL.
Yes. Because in Gujarati, in North Indian languages, we have a bunch of vowels. A. And so, is our default vowel. So in this Gumble, the console of allocation, you look at this guy, he's greasy, he's sleazy. He looks like every inspector, like police guy in every bad 70s and 80s Bollywood movie you've ever seen. You can smell the wax on his mustache. You can tell this guy smokes a lot of BDs in the background. You know, like the Indian cigarettes that are tobacco leaves rolled up and then stuffed with more tobacco leaves just to be the cigarette of cigarettes. And like this dude is like the most perfectly jackhole-ish Indian guy you're ever going to see. He's the guy who, when you're in high school, is slapping your wrist with a ruler or like yelling at you because you didn't pay the fine or the door fee or whatever the hell. And he's like perfect. He is like, this artwork was so beautiful and just like so, I mean, he's a terrible, like a sleazy ball character, but he is so well, perfectly designed. Like, I love this card. This artwork made me super thrilled in the set when it was being previewed, just because it was exactly the Indian villain of every kid's dreams. Like, he's iconic. Like, you could see he was sitting there twirling his mustache. Like, he's so sleazy. I love it.
He's the literal fun police.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This guy is like, I hate everything about it and you. And it's great. I love this set. This set's got a lot of stories and it's got a lot of insane things about it. I mean, they made some missteps that I think they're going to learn from it for the next time. I think they've definitely taken to heart all the things I've brought up and said. But like, you look at Kumbal, you look at Rashmi, Sahili Rai is amazing looking. The Etherborn are really incredible representations of school of philosophy of India, of being materialistic and hedonistic. And I think when we go back to Kaladesh, it'll be incredible to see. I think it'll be really cool. And I mean, I just wish they had thrown a rickshaw in there, like, or like, you know, because all these cars, none of them were, except for the trains. But yeah, the Etherborn was pretty neat. I like.
But there's nobody riding on top of the trains.
Yeah, dude, have you seen the video of Chaya Chaya, the famous
Dude,
Bollywood song?
we talked about this on Twitter. It's like one of my favorite. I love it.
Exactly, and it's like iconic. If they had put like 3 random Etherborn just hanging off the top of the Ardar Express, wouldn't have killed anybody. It would have been amazing. I would have been drinking some chai while the thing is just barreling down, hitting you for 5.
I can't remember where I heard Chaya Chaya originally, but I remember that a remix of it was used in the opening titles of the Spike Lee movie Inside Man, and I was in the theater. I was like, "What?
I know that song."
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really good. You should look it up, people at home.
it's great. I love it.
How do you spell it? CHAYA.
CHAIYA. Yeah,
YA? Okay.
yeah, from the movie Dilse.
Yeah.
DILSE.
It's just such a good song.
Yeah,
And they spend the whole video dancing on a train.
Oh, I love it. It's great. That set piece was iconic and won awards because they did it in real time, dangerously above cliff sides on a train dancing. And it is crazy through the rain and everything. It's amazing. And then, of course, my girl Dipala. I love her. She's amazing. Life-sized on the dwarf here. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a ton more to talk about in Ether Revolt too, but
Yeah, I think we will have to save it for another time, which
I think we'll
which
have
is
to.
great because I'm excited to talk more.
yeah, absolutely.
What were you saying, Paul?
Well, I was just saying, it's great that, at least from everything I've heard from Magic players and stuff, that Kaladesh as a set has been, so well received that the chances of going back to it are certainly very high. Obviously, it'll be a little bit, but there's all sorts of cool things that they can do in that setting.
Once the Phyrexians come on the planar bridge and destroy everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, if Phyrexians or or some other nasty big thing just comes along and destroys the plane, I'll be real mad.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
can't have
I mean,
every plane be destroyed by Eldrazi.
dude, seriously, right?
Um,
Um, yeah, I don't know. This set is just super sick. I'm just looking over the art right now, and I mean, are there any cards you had any questions about, or
not that I can think of offhand, but
yeah,
I talking about how much you love the set. What I loved about this conversation, and at the risk of putting words in your mouth,
sure,
is that for me, I think it's great that you you love the set and you love so much about the set, but that there's also specifics that you have big legit problems with, and I know that was a part of what I saw externally as the problem with a lot of the, as you said, the flack you were getting on on Reddit or on your Twitter, because
oh man,
internet discourse requires things to be binary, and it really is not the case.
they called me
And
uppity, man. It was
it's
so like really.
it's like you can. I just want I am constantly engaging in my plea for internet sanity, and this is a prime example of you love Magic, you love this set,
Right.
but you can still have problems with it, and that's
That is
fine.
exactly it. Like, look, dude, I love Magic. I've spent thousands of, I mean, I've been playing for almost half my life, right?
Yeah,
I started with the dark, for God's sakes.
I'm
And
sorry.
and
And
it's
yet you
just,
kept playing.
you want to be your D&D character, you can actually cast your fireball in Magic. It's amazing.
Yeah,
But it's just I wanted this set so badly my whole life, right? Like I wanted to see myself in my favorite game. Cuz I'm sure you're familiar with fantasy and video games.
yep,
Not a whole lot of brown people in there until, let's say, yesterday.
yeah.
And um, like, okay, so let me tell you a story. I was at GDC a few weeks ago because I used to be in the video games industry, and I was at a bar, and I was talking to this nice Japanese lady, and we were comparing stories about living in Japan because I used to live there. And I was like, oh, so where are you from? And she's like, oh, I'm from Kyoto. I'm like, oh, neat. I love Kyoto. And we talked about Kyoto for a while. I'm like, oh, what do you do there? She's like, oh, I work for Nintendo. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I like Nintendo. I'm like, what do you do at Nintendo? And she's like, have you heard of a game called Animal Crossing? And I'm like, oh, I love Dobutsu no Mori. I used to play it all the time. I'm a big fan. And I'm like, what do you do in Dobutsu no Mori? And she's like, oh, I'm the game's director. And I'm like,
What
and so I'm just sitting there. I'm like,
did you
literally
just
after I cleaned up my drink, and I was like, "Oh,
Did
I'm
you
so sorry." Let me.
did you just break out in a cold sweat? Like,
And then I was like,
wow.
"Hey, how come I have to go to a beach on the faraway side of the country and sit in real time 3 hours with my character basically naked so he can get to my skin tone in this game?" And she kind of just looked at me like, "Hmm." And I was like, "Yeah, this is 2017. I can have skin tone colors. It doesn't change the game at all. Pokemon lets me be a brown guy. Why won't Animal Crossing?" And so yeah, so Magic the Gathering, I was like, oh my god! After I saw, was it Guardian Automaton in Magic Origins, which is like the greatest card art because I built a whole campaign setting based on that card, and I was like, oh my god, I might get it. This might be the set that lets me finally see me in my favorite game. And when the stuff came out, and it was like, oh no, this is just like car cultural America, where she's dancing reels and doing all this crazy stuff, and it's like totally nothing to do with anything Indian. I was just like, guys, I waited patiently. You said my turn was going to come. It's my turn now. What do I get to do? And it sucked, right? It
Right.
sucked a lot. But
There was that initial like massive letdown.
oh my god, dude! At Gen and at PAX, I was just crushed. I was like,
Yeah.
I've waited. This is what I got. But you know what? The thing is, like, Sean Main is one of my favorite people, and I talked a lot to him, and I talked a lot to Kelly, and they listened to me. And in listening to me, it made me feel a lot better about where Magic is going and about what they've learned from this. And I have a lot of hope for the future. And this set is so much fun that I was able to just sit there and say, you know what, they made some mistakes, but I like it enough that everybody's like, well, if you don't like this, if you don't like it, you should shut up and like let us have our magic and just go make your own game or leave. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. I've invested a lot of time and money in this set.
Yeah.
I'm not going nowhere.
It
I'm
doesn't.
like,
It's not one or the other.
right, like this is not an either or. I'll just suck it up for a while, and it'll 6 months later it'll be totally different.
Yeah.
Like I
You
hated
can.
Eldritch Moon, right? And I
You
didn't
can
leave
still
for that.
have. You can still have great magic, and also, like it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, look, man, Kaladesh was a lot of really good steps. And if it didn't work for me, the next time they go to a culture, some other kid will be able to take the fruits of what I've been able to bring and see themselves represented.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important for these kids today because being able to see yourself normal in a game that you like to play where you don't have to pretend to be an other. Like when I was a kid, I would have to like, I would I mean, it sounds weird because I'm a 36-year-old father, right? But
Right.
when I was like 13 and I'm playing like D&D or something, and you're looking at your Dragonlance covers, and they're all these big buff white guys, and I'm like, my friend's like, I'm gonna be that guy, and I'm gonna be that chick, and I'm like, uh, hmm. And so you have to kind of subsume yourself into this character and role play and stuff. But being able to just have Gear Crafter who looks like me, that means I don't have to do that. That means
Yeah.
I'm there in the game with everybody else. That means when C Sprankle Run is off cosplaying as like Nissa or as Avacyn, I can cosplay the Gearcrafter and we can both be authentic to the card, ourselves, and the game. And that is so important for everybody. And the fact that Kaladesh gave me that chance is such a big deal that I'm willing to say, okay, look, you made some mistakes in the way, but what you gave me is such a net positive, I can't complain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, I can complain, I will complain, but I'm on the whole very happy with how it turns out. Aether Revolt, I didn't like as much because they took my favorite mechanics out of the set, but whatever. The art is so great.
Yeah.
They gave us Ragavan. How do you
Ragavan's
say no
awesome.
to
Ragavan's
Shiny
goggles.
Ragavan? Like,
It's so good.
Yeah,
Jumping Monkey.
and like you were talking about the them bringing in people sort of partway through the process for Kaladesh,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean from everything that we've heard sort of from the mothership as it's called,
Yeah.
It really seems like that is a shift in their process. The idea of bringing people in, not just sort of doing kind of a sprinkling,
Yeah.
but actually kind of bring people in on the ground floor to make things more. I mean, not just like more authentic, but more actually, more interesting.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to
that's
be
the best part.
It doesn't have to be elves and dwarves all the time.
That's the best thing.
They
is
can
that
be there,
you-
but maybe we could have other stuff too.
making a game, especially a game like Magic, more diverse. You lose nothing and you gain so much.
Right, think about all the neat stories I told you today that you had no idea about.
Exactly. That's so
Like-
cool.
I think that's so awesome. I love that this game in like one card. Like, look at Guardian Automaton right on the screen. My favorite card art in maybe the past like decade. Because you see a multiracial cast there. You see this little girl who's obviously rich with her big Guardian filigree. Obviously, you could see like there's a Portuguese trader there. This is obviously some kind of big port city that I could tell a gigantic story from. Of like these guys have gears and thopters and stuff, and there's a big trade port, and there's people coming from other places bringing things, and you could build a whole milieu out of this one card. And there's so much cool stories like that. And I think having that chance being something more than just yet another generic Euro fantasy is like cool because I mean when I was a kid I learned about the world because of D&D books. Kids today are going to learn about this from like games like Magic or Skyrim or whatever
Yeah.
and get like actual exposure to things. Exposure is good.
That's great.
And
And
I think,
I've been thrilled today being exposed to these stories.
yes,
And
well,
I look forward to the next time because we should have you back to talk about cards from Aether Revolt.
oh absolutely.
Probably in the near future because Amonkhet's going to come out eventually.
Hey man, I mean, I'm not going to be quite as good as that wonderful German lady Rudijet. I think her name is on Twitter, who's the actual Egyptologist.
Oh
But,
yeah.
yeah, we
God,
should
maybe
talk to her.
yeah, we should see if we can maybe get a hold of her for a thing. But I mean,
mean-
we should get Aether Revolt squared away
Yeah, but I
before
absolutely would love to
Amonkhet
come
takes
back,
over the
because
Magic
I've
news
got
cycle.
Plenty to say about Aether Revolt too.
Awesome.
And yeah, no, this is a blast, and thank you so much for having me. I've had a great time.
Thank you for taking the time to join us. This has been super interesting. And I guess, yeah, that's going to do it for today, I think. But by way of wrapping up, a reminder, of course, to check out our sponsors, cardkingdom.com/LRR, because we love them. And you can support not just this show, but all the stuff that we do at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. Shivam, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Electrotal, ELEKTROTAL, though these days that Twitter tends to be a little bit more politically themed. I don't know if you know much about America, but we're having a moment right now.
There's a lot going on down there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a good time for people who look like me. But also, my magic focus Twitter feed is Girapuri Gears, which is literally Girapur, GHIRAPURIGEARS, as in Girapuri Gears, a citizen of Girapur.
Right.
And yeah, so
And
if you want just
the
my
avatar
magic
is the
stuff-
Gear per Gear Crafter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the articles I write on Tumblr about Kaladesh and magic and culture and stuff get reposted there as well.
Including a super useful pronunciation guide.
Yeah, including the pronunciation guide that a lot of people have thanked me for, and I'm really glad that I've been able to help in that way, because I did not want to sit through hours and hours of tournament reports of Billy Bunders and the Campbells and whatever.
Bandar.
Yeah, Bandar.
Bandar.
God bless him. But
It sounds wrong to me now. I've been saying Bunder for so long. It sounds wrong to me now.
Right? I'm glad. I am glad it sounds wrong.
So, all right. Thank you so much, Stephen, and thanks everybody for joining us today.
Thank you
And
very much.
we'll talk to you next time. Bye.